Today I'm going to explain what businesses need for health and safety in 2026. Hello, my name is Patrick Sansom. I am a chartered member of COSHH, a fellow of IRSM and a registered health and safety consultant. I'm going to explain health and safety policy, general risk assessments, fire risk assessments, control of substances hazardous to health. Wow, what a mouthful. So let's make a start. So, health and safety requirements. First thing you're going to require is a health and safety policy. If you've got 5 or more employees, then you need legally a fully documented health and safety policy, which then needs to be written and reviewed every 12 months at a minimum. So that'll then look at the responsibilities of people within the business. So for instance, starting off at the top, managing director, their responsibilities, coming down, managers, down to employees, even visitors. It then goes on to the next section, which will be arrangements of how physically you're running the business. So who's responsible for carrying out risk assessments, who's responsible for inspections, if you're driving forklift trucks, everything of how the business basically operates. The next bit we have is general risk assessments. They are generally broken down into 2 areas, which would be area and task. So I'll give you for example, so a warehouse might have an office, so you'll have an office risk assessment dedicated to people that work in the office. So that will be one general risk assessment for an area. And then, for instance, you might then have one for the warehouse operating area where the risks are totally different to the office. We then look at the task. For instance, we've got a warehouse, but within that warehouse, one of the tasks would be operating a forklift truck. You would then need an individual risk assessment for the operators operating the forklift truck. Are you driving it round because the hazards are different? We'll then have fire risk assessment. The fire risk assessment for that business looks specifically at all elements for fire. So how big is the premises? Is it 1 story? Is it 2 stories? What's the overall area coverage? What fire alarm system has it got fitted? Has it got an emergency lighting? How many fire doors has it got? How many exits has it got? What are the occupancy? How many people are physically within the building? And are they predominantly employees, visitors, members of the public, and just sort of looking at all elements of people that are going to physically visit the business. So you imagine the fire risk assessment in itself can be quite detailed. We've then got display screen equipment, DSE. So anybody using a computer for what they say is a significant amount of time, which the HSE deems as an hour or more. These days, most people. So if then you're using a computer for an hour or more, you need to do a display screen equipment assessment. This is an individual assessment for an individual person at their workstation, looking at the computer, looking at the monitor, looking at the keyboard, the mouse mat, the table, the chair, everything in their workstation. And again, needs to be done by the individual and then reviewed on an annual basis. Then we've got COSHH, control of substances hazardous to health. So what chemicals are the business using? It then looks at control measures, what engineering controls are in place, what PPE, personal protective equipment, needs to be used whilst using those chemicals. That can then be down to what, for example, masks, gloves, even protective clothing. And it can also stipulate there can be a specific amount of time that that employee can only use those chemicals for. So as you can imagine, that's quite complex. And just to go through requirements for your business within the UK for 2026, you need a health and safety policy, general risk assessments for the business, fire risk assessment for the property, and then potentially display screen equipment and controlled substances hazardous to health. If you need any support, then please contact Summit Safety Solutions on www.summitsafetysolutions.co.uk.